The stale, sterile air of the server farm always smelled like ozone and a faint electrical hum that was as constant as my own heartbeat. It was 2:37 a.m., and I was elbow deep in the guts of the Hydra cluster, our company's flagship data warehouse, trying to coax a dying RAID array back from the brink. The fluorescent lights hummed above, painting everything in a sickly yellow glow, reflecting off the polished chrome of the server racks. My breath plumed slightly in the controlled chill of the room. This was my world. Logic, algorithms, the elegant dance of data. I knew every blink of every LED, every whir of every fan. I was fixing servers, a digital surgeon, keeping the pulse of the internet alive for millions of users. Suddenly, a series of rapid-fire alerts flashed across my diagnostic tablet. Not the usual disk failure or overheating warnings. These were cascading, catastrophic, system-wide errors. Critical process termination, network protocol failure, data stream interruption. It wasn't just Hydra, it was everything. My fingers flew across the keyboard trying to isolate the problem, but the readouts blurred into a frantic red cascade. The hum of the servers around me began to falter, a collective intake of breath, then a wheezing, desperate cough. One rack went dark, then another, the cooling fans winding down into an eerie silence. My stomach dropped. I'd never seen anything like it. This wasn't a local outage. This was a complete, systemic collapse. The internet, it was dying. A deep thrumming vibrated up from the floor, shaking the metal grating beneath my feet. Not an earthquake, but something else. Something massive, grinding, distant. It felt wrong, a visceral tremor that had no place in the cool, isolated precision of the server farm. Then, the overhead lights flickered violently, plunging the room into momentary darkness before snapping back on. Dimmer now, a warning of power instability. The emergency battery backups kicked in with a low, mournful groan, but they were already struggling. My tablet screen went black, the last vestige of the digital world winking out of existence. "No," I whispered, the word feeling utterly inadequate. "No, no, no." The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the frantic thump of my own heart against my ribs. The servers, once a symphony of mechanical life, were now cold, dead monuments of steel and wire. The internet, my entire professional life, had just died. And with it, I instinctively knew, then, the world, as I understood it, was gone too. I stumbled out of the server room, my legs feeling like lead, the emergency lights in the hallway casting long, grotesque shadows. The air outside was thick with a metallic tang I couldn't place, and the thrumming from before had intensified, vibrating through the building's concrete foundations. My office floor, usually a maze of cubicles and hushed keyboard clicks, was empty. A dead phone lay on a receptionist's desk, its screen dark. No dial tone, no cell service, just static. Panic was a cold, constricting band around my chest. What was happening? This wasn't just a power outage, this was bigger. A distant scream, ragged and raw, tore through the silence from somewhere below. It wasn't human, not quite. It had a desperate, animalistic quality that curdled my blood. My hands instinctively went to my pockets, searching for my phone, for any connection to the outside. Nothing, just the smooth plastic of my ID badge. My world had shrunk to the four walls of this building and whatever horrors lurked beyond. I hurried to the nearest window, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. 10 stories up, the city usually glittered with a million lights, a vibrant tapestry of human activity. Now it was a mosaic of darkness, interrupted by sporadic, angry flashes of orange. Fires everywhere. Smoke plumed into the night sky, illuminated by the distant, dying embers of what used to be entire neighborhoods. The streets below, usually a ceaseless river of headlights and taillights, were choked with still, dark vehicles like frozen metal insects. And between them, amidst the chaos, I saw shapes moving, shuffling, lurching. Too many. My breath hitched. They were everywhere. Dark figures, hundreds, thousands, swarming through the city like a tide of pestilence. Their movements were jerky, unnatural, a grotesque mockery of human locomotion. Some stumbled, some dragged limbs, but they all moved with a relentless, terrifying purpose. A chill deeper than the server room's air conditioning seeped into my bones. This wasn't just a blackout. This was an apocalypse. The scream from before echoed in my mind, and I knew with chilling certainty, those things were making the sound. I backed away from the window, the image of the burning city seared into my retinas. My mind, trained in logical progression and problem solving, struggled to reconcile what I was seeing with any known reality. This was a nightmare, a horror movie, except the smell of distant burning was real. The static on the dead phone was real, and the gut-wrenching terror was undeniably real. I was Alex, a senior systems administrator, and I was supposed to be fixing servers, not watching the world burn. My first thought was Sarah, my girlfriend. We'd had a fight that morning, a stupid one about my long hours, my obsession with work. I told her I'd make it up to her, promised a weekend getaway.
Now, I squeezed my eyes shut, a wave of nausea washing over me. Sarah, was she safe? Was anyone safe? The emergency lights, already dim, began to flicker more violently, casting my reflection in the polished marble of the hallway. A pale, haunted face, wide eyes, hair disheveled from hours in the server racks. I looked like a ghost already. The building was a modern office tower, mostly glass and steel, designed for efficiency, not defense. It was a death trap. I needed to get out, but where? My analytical mind, bless its relentless wiring, started kicking in, forcing out the raw panic. What were the variables? What were the knowns? Knowns. 1. Internet dead. 2. Power intermittent, soon gone. 3. City burning, filled with things. 4. No communication. 5. I am alone. Unknowns. 1. What are those things? 2. How did this happen? 3. How many are there? 4. What's the best route out? 5. Is anyone else alive? Survival. That was the primary objective. But how? My skills were useless here. I could optimize a database, debug a kernel, but I couldn't fight whatever was out there. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. I was good with machines, terrible with people, and completely unprepared for a world where both had gone mad. My gaze fell on the security desk near the main lobby, visible through the glass wall of the office floor. Empty. Usually there was a guard, a friendly face. Now, just a vacant chair. The building's main entrance, a revolving glass door, was locked, but glass was fragile. The thrumming outside the building grew louder, closer, punctuated by occasional thuds against the exterior. They were testing the perimeter. I needed a plan. And a weapon. My office was on the 10th floor. The stairs were the only option. The elevators were dead. I remembered the emergency stairwell, a solid concrete enclosed shaft. A faint glimmer of hope, quickly extinguished by the realization that it led directly to the lobby, where whatever was outside was likely already trying to get in. I pictured the throngs of shuffling figures pressing against the glass, their faces pale, hollow, their hands scraping at the reinforced doors. The image was vivid, horrific. My office, my cubicle. It felt like a lifetime ago that I was sitting there, immersed in code. The desk, the ergonomic chair, the framed photo of Sarah smiling, her arm around me. The memory was a fresh wound. I walked over, my movement stiff, like I was moving through treacle. Her smile was so vibrant, so full of life. Now, the world outside was swallowing all that light. I rifled through my desk drawers. Stapler, pens, a half-eaten granola bar. Useless. Then, my fingers brushed against something cold and heavy. My old mag light. I'd kept it there since the last power flicker, a relic from a more innocent time. It felt surprisingly good in my hand, solid, weighty. Not a gun, but better than nothing. I clicked it on. A thin beam of light cut through the gloom. A small comfort. What else? Food, water, anything. I found a dusty emergency kit under the desk, some bandages, an antiseptic wipe, a couple of bottled waters. Not much, but enough to start. This felt like a video game, an inventory screen, but the stakes were impossibly high. This wasn't a game. This was the end. The screaming from downstairs erupted again, closer this time, accompanied by a hideous, wit-tearing sound. My stomach churned. They were inside. My building. My fortress of data and order. The sound was quickly muffled, then silence. Whatever made that noise, whatever was that noise, it was efficient, and it was coming. I pressed myself against the cool drywall of the corridor, listening. The thrumming outside was now a dull roar, interspersed with individual thuds and scrapes. It was like a swarm, a hive mind, focused on one thing: getting in. The silence from inside the building was equally terrifying. They moved quietly, deceptively. The lack of their own screams, their own human protest, was chilling. My mind raced. Escape. But how? 10 floors was a long way down. Rappelling wasn't an option. The fire escape? It was on the far side of the building. Exposed. Too risky. I needed something stealthy, something clever. My expertise was in systems, in finding vulnerabilities. Could I apply that here? I remembered the building's layout. Below us, the lower floors were parking garages, 3 levels deep. Then, the basement, utilities, maintenance, storage, and an old service tunnel that ran for blocks, connecting our building to a few others in the downtown core. It was disused, mostly forgotten, locked down. But I had a key card for everything. My admin privileges extended to the physical infrastructure, not just the digital. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was a shot. The service tunnel. It was dark, likely full of rats, but it was underground, away from the things outside. It could buy me time, get me away from the immediate chaos. The thought provided a flicker of determination, a tiny flame of hope in the suffocating darkness. I clutched the mag light, its beam dancing nervously over the empty hallway. But getting to the basement meant getting through 10 floors, past whatever had made that tearing sound. It meant facing them, alone. A sudden, sharp crash echoed from the floor below, followed by a chorus of low, guttural moans. They were on the 9th floor, moving fast. The thud of footsteps, not quite running, but not quite shuffling either. A hungry sound. My blood ran cold. The staircase was directly across from my office. My escape route was now their entry point. I had to move, now, before they got to my floor. My cubicle was small, but it had an emergency escape panel built into the back wall, a rarely used feature designed for quick access to the adjoining utility shaft for maintenance. It was thin metal, bolted from the inside. Not secure, but an option. If I could get into the shaft, I could potentially climb down, or at least hide. It was a slim chance. I grabbed the only tools I had, a heavy antique paperweight from my boss's desk, and my own mag light. The paperweight was a solid chunk of brass, shaped like a miniature server. Irony, I thought bitterly. I didn't have time for irony. The sounds from the 9th floor intensified, more crashes, more moans. A distinct, sickening, wet smack. My stomach lurched. I imagined them, tearing at something, someone. The hallway outside my office was still empty, but the shadows seemed to deepen, to coil. I could almost feel their presence, a creeping cold that wasn't just the air conditioning. I had to decide.
Stairwell, facing them head-on, or the utility shaft, a cramped, dark hole with unknown dangers. Risk versus unknown. My systems mind made the choice. The known danger of the stairs was too great. The unknown might offer a slim chance. I dashed into my cubicle, pulling out the small square panel. 4 heavy bolts held it in place. No time for a screwdriver. I grabbed the brass paperweight, my knuckles white. Each clang of metal against metal felt deafening, a siren call to whatever was below. 1 bolt came loose, then another, the sound grating. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the weight. I pictured Sarah again, her face, her laugh. It gave me a surge of desperate strength. Survive. The 3rd bolt resisted, stuck fast. I hammered it again and again, gritting my teeth, the sweat stinging my eyes. Footsteps, definitely closer now, on the stairs, 1 floor below. They knew I was here. I could hear their guttural moans, a low, constant chorus that seemed to vibrate in my very bones. Their hunger was palpable, a foul wave of intent washing over me. "Come on," I muttered, grunting with effort, slamming the paperweight onto the bolt head. It finally gave, tearing free with a sharp crack that sounded like a gunshot in the terrifying silence of the building. 3 bolts down, 1 more. My arm ached, my breath was ragged, my heart felt like it was going to explode through my chest. The sounds from the stairwell were right outside the door now. A scraping, shuffling noise, a wet sniff. They were here. I looked at the last bolt, then at the cubicle entrance. No time. I grabbed the mag light, using its weight to batter the remaining bolt. It was a flimsy lock, not designed for brute force. With a final, desperate shove, it gave way. The panel swung inward, revealing a dark, claustrophobic shaft, barely wide enough for me to squeeze through. The air inside was still, dusty, smelling of old concrete and something metallic. My small escape. Just as I squeezed into the shaft, my back pressed against the cold metal. A shadow fell over the cubicle entrance. A gaunt figure, impossibly thin, its clothes shredded, its skin a sickly gray. Its head snapped towards me, eyes milky and dead, jaw hanging slack. It made a low, rattling gasp, a sound that would haunt my dreams for years. It knew I was there. It reached for me, its fingers skeletal, twitching. I slammed the panel shut, fumbling for the makeshift latch, my heart hammering like a drum solo. The thing outside slammed against the panel immediately, a wet, sickening thud. The thin metal shuddered under the impact. Another thud, and another. The latch was weak, it wouldn't hold. I pushed back against the panel with all my might, feeling the vibrations of its furious, persistent assault. Its growls and moans were right outside my ear, a visceral chorus of hunger. I could feel its breath, foul and cold, seeping through the tiny cracks. This was it. Trapped in a tiny, dark shaft with a monster trying to break through a flimsy barrier. This wasn't fixing servers. This was a primal fight for survival. This was the end of the line and the start of something far, far worse. The utility shaft was a vertical labyrinth of pipes and conduits, a concrete tube that plunged into the unseen depths of the building. The air was thick with the dust of ages and a faint, metallic odor I couldn't place. The thuds against the access panel were relentless, each impact jarring my teeth. I could hear the thing outside scratching at the metal, its nails rasping, trying to find a purchase, its low moans a constant soundtrack to my terror. My entire body trembled, pressed against cold, rusty pipes. The emergency lights in the main office corridor were still flickering, casting dancing shadows through the ventilation grates above me. But down here, in the bowels of the shaft, it was absolute darkness, broken only by the feeble beam of my mag light. My mind raced, trying to formulate a plan. Up or down? Up led to the roof, a potential dead end. Down led to the basement, and hopefully the service tunnels. But how far down?
And what if the things were already in the basement? I didn't know. This was a jump into the void, but at least it was a jump away from immediate certain death. I tested a ladder rung, old and rusted. It groaned under my weight, but held. Slowly, carefully, I began my descent. Each movement was agonizingly slow, calculated. The metallic taste of fear was sharp on my tongue. The sounds of the infected outside the panel began to fade as I descended, replaced by the creak of the old ladder, the drip of water somewhere below, and the frantic pounding of my own heart. Down, down, into the darkness. I passed floor after floor, counting them off in my head, a desperate litany. 9th, 8th, 7th. Each floor was identical, a concrete slab with a small access panel, like the one I just closed. I imagined them, shuffling through the abandoned offices, their dead eyes searching, their hunger insatiable. At the 4th floor, I heard something, a faint scratching sound coming from inside the shaft, below me. I froze, my hand clamped around a rusty pipe, my breath held. The mag light beam shook. Rats? Please, let it be rats. But the scratching was too heavy, too deliberate. And then a low, wet growl. Not a rat, something bigger, something human-shaped. My blood ran cold again. They were in the shaft, or one of them was. Had it climbed in from a lower floor? Was it waiting? My hands were slick with sweat and grime. I gripped the mag light tighter, my only weapon. My heart hammered against my ribs, a painful, frantic beat. What do I do? Go back up? Down was dangerous, but up was certain death if that panel gave way. I forced myself to keep moving, slower now, my senses heightened. Every creak of the ladder, every drip of water sounded like a thunderclap. My eyes strained into the darkness below, the beam of the mag light dancing nervously, trying to pierce the gloom. The growling stopped, the scratching stopped. Silence. The worst kind of silence. Then a sudden, blinding flash from below. The mag light beam caught it for a split second. A face. Pale, contorted, too close. Its eyes were black, sunken. Its jaw hung open, a gaping, tooth-filled maw. It lunged. My scream was strangled, caught in my throat. I swung the mag light blindly, a desperate arc through the darkness. The solid metal connected with something hard, a sickening crunch that vibrated up my arm. A shriek, high-pitched and inhuman, echoed through the shaft. The thing recoiled, thrashing, clinging to the pipes. It was impossibly strong, even damaged. Its hand, gnarled and grasping, shot out, catching my ankle. I lost my footing, slipping on the rusty rung. My body slammed against the concrete wall, sending a jolt of pain up my spine. The mag light flew from my hand, clattering down into the darkness below. No, my only weapon, my only light. I scrabbled for purchase, my fingers raw against the rough concrete, trying to hold on. The infected thing was still clinging to my ankle, its grip like iron, pulling me down. I kicked at it with my free foot, a desperate, wild flail. It snarled, a low, angry sound, but didn't let go. Its teeth, yellow and pointed, scraped against my jeans. I could feel its hot, fetid breath on my skin. Panic, cold and sharp, threatened to overwhelm me. This was it. After all the years of fixing servers, of living in a world of logic and reason, I was going to die here, in a dark shaft, torn apart by a monster. The irony was a bitter taste. With a desperate surge of adrenaline, I brought my knee up, slamming it into the thing's head, again and again. It roared, a sound of fury and pain, and for a split second, its grip loosened. I twisted my ankle free, scrambling upward, climbing with a frantic, desperate energy I didn't know I possessed. The thing recovered, lunging again, its fingers scrabbling at my shoe, but I was faster. I climbed, driven by pure terror, not looking back, not daring to. I climbed until my lungs burned, until my muscles screamed in protest, until my hands were raw and bleeding. I didn't stop until I saw the faint flickering light of the ground floor far below. I hadn't lost my light, just dropped it. It was still shining, a beacon in the terrifying gloom. I descended the rest of the way, my body trembling, my mind reeling from the encounter. The infected thing was gone. Had it fallen? I didn't know, didn't care. I just wanted out. I reached the bottom of the shaft, landing with a soft thump on the concrete floor. My mag light lay a few feet away, still shining, its beam illuminating a small pool of stagnant water. I snatched it up, checking the batteries. It held, a small victory. This was the basement. The air was colder here, heavier, laden with the damp smell of earth and mildew. Pipes snaked overhead, a tangle of rusting metal. The walls were rough concrete, stained with years of moisture. My light danced over flickering shadows, revealing old storage crates, defunct machinery, and dust, thick layers of it. No immediate threats, but the silence was unnerving. I scanned the walls, searching for the access panel to the service tunnels. I knew it was here, buried somewhere. My memory of the building schematics, honed by years of system infrastructure planning, was my only guide now. It was located near the old incinerator, by the main steam conduits. A low growl from the far end of the basement froze me in place. No, not a growl, a mechanical groan. One of the old boilers. Still running? With no power? It didn't make sense. And then a subtle tremor in the floor, growing stronger. A heavy rhythmic thudding. Coming closer. My heart hammered again. They weren't just in the offices, they were here too. This building, this supposed sanctuary, was a nest. The service tunnels felt like my only salvation. I moved with renewed urgency, half crouched, mag light beams sweeping the darkness. There. A heavy steel door, rusted, almost camouflaged against the concrete wall. The keycard reader next to it was dark, dead. My old keycard, the one that unlocked everything, was useless. The internet died, and with it, all the digital access I'd relied on for years. Damn it, I hissed, slamming my fist against the door. Locked. This wasn't going to be easy. My gaze fell on the thick iron handle. A heavy padlock, also rusted, secured it. I had to break it open. The thudding was getting closer, accompanied by the distinct, wet shuffle of multiple feet. They were coming down the main basement ramp. Soon, they would be here. My time was running out. I looked around desperately for something to use as a pry bar, a blunt instrument. My eyes landed on a discarded length of steel rebar, thick with rust, leaning against a stack of crates. Heavy, potentially useful. I grabbed it, testing its weight. It was unwieldy, but solid. I jammed the rebar into the gap between the padlock shackle and the doorframe, grunting with effort, trying to leverage it open. The metal groaned in protest, but held. I pulled harder, muscles straining, sweat dripping down my face. The thudding grew louder. I could hear their guttural moans now, echoing off the concrete walls, surrounding me. Suddenly, a shape emerged from the gloom at the end of the main ramp, a single infected. Its head tilted, sensing me. Then another, and another, a small horde. Their eyes, dull and lifeless, fixed on me. They started to move, slow at first, then picking up a grotesque momentum. I slammed the rebar against the padlock, a desperate, frantic effort. Sparks flew as metal grated on metal. The padlock shrieked, then snapped, the shackle breaking with a loud crack. The door creaked open, revealing a black void beyond, smelling of damp earth and stale air. Salvation. But the infected were almost upon me. The first one, a hulking figure in what looked like maintenance overalls, lunged. I dropped the rebar, too slow to pick it up, and grabbed the door, slamming it shut just as the thing crashed into it. The steel reverberated with the impact, shaking the entire frame. I fumbled for the old, heavy bolt on the inside, sliding it home. It was rusty, but thick. It held. Pounding. A furious, relentless assault on the door. Moans, growls, the wet thud of bodies hitting steel. I leaned against the door, my chest heaving, the steel rebar lying forgotten on the floor outside. I was inside, safe for a moment. But the darkness of the service tunnel swallowed the beam of my mag light, an oppressive, suffocating void. I was alone, deeper underground, surrounded by the unknown. The world was truly gone, and I was just a ghost in its forgotten veins. The service tunnel was a claustrophobic maw of darkness and echoes.
My maglite beam, now my sole point of reference, barely cut through the oppressive gloom, revealing a tunnel of cracked concrete, rusting pipes, and occasional spills of unknown viscous fluids. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of damp earth, mildew, and something else, a faint metallic tang that raised the hairs on my arms. The thudding against the steel door behind me slowly faded as I walked deeper, replaced by the relentless drip, drip, drip of water from unseen cracks in the ceiling. Every sound was magnified, distorted, turning into a symphony of dread. My ankle, twisted during the struggle in the utility shaft, throbbed with a dull ache. My hands were raw, my muscles screaming from the adrenaline-fueled escape. But the terror of the immediate past kept me moving, one foot in front of the other, pushing me further into the unknown. I was a digital man, built for logic and order, now traversing a literal underworld, relying on instinct and a dying flashlight. The irony was not lost on me, even in my panic state. I was no longer fixing servers. I was just trying to survive the world that had collapsed around them. The tunnel stretched endlessly, a monotonous tube of concrete and pipes. I walked for what felt like hours, my perception of time warped by the darkness and my own exhaustion. My mind, usually a hive of logical connections, kept replaying the images. The burning city, the shuffling figures, the dead eyes of the infected in the shaft. Sarah's face, her last angry words. The guilt was a heavy weight in my gut. Had I wasted my last moments with her? Would I ever see her again? The thought was a raw, aching wound. I passed abandoned crates, some filled with dusty, defunct electrical equipment, others with empty, rusting oil drums. This tunnel had been forgotten, a relic of an older city, repurposed, then left to rot. Perfect. The more forgotten, the less likely they would find it. My stomach rumbled, a sharp reminder of the granola bar I'd eaten what felt like days ago. Thirst was a dry rasp in my throat. I stopped for a moment, leaning against a cold, damp pipe, and took a long, slow swallow from one of my bottled waters. It was lukewarm, but it was nectar. I rationing them carefully. This was a long journey, and I had no idea where I was going or how long I could last. My gaze fell on a pile of debris, old maintenance uniforms, stained and ripped. Among them, something caught my eye. A heavy wrench, still caked with grease. A potential weapon. I picked it up. It felt good in my hand, solid, weighty. Another small addition to my pitiful arsenal. I was building a new skill set, forced to adapt to a world that had forgotten the value of gigabytes and bandwidth. I was building a new skill set, forced to adapt to a world that had forgotten the value of gigabytes and bandwidth. As I continued, the tunnel began to narrow, the ceiling lowering, forcing me to hunch over. The air grew even heavier, more oppressive. My breath came in ragged gasps. The constant drip of water created a rhythmic, maddening background noise, like a slow, insistent pulse. Then I heard it, a faint scraping sound ahead of me. I froze, my heart leaping into my throat. The maglite beam shook uncontrollably in my trembling hand. Was it another one, down here? My mind screamed at the impossibility. How? This tunnel was sealed. I pressed myself against the rough concrete wall, my wrench raised, ready. My eyes strained into the blackness, trying to pierce the gloom. The scraping sound continued, closer now, accompanied by a low, guttural moan. It wasn't one of them. It was them, plural.
A small group, perhaps, drawn by the same desperate hope for shelter. The mag light beam found them. 4 figures hunched over something on the tunnel floor, their backs to me. They were tearing at it, grunting, their movements jerky and unnatural. Their clothes were tattered, their skin pale and stained. They were feeding. My stomach lurched, and I clamped a hand over my mouth, suppressing a gag. The smell hit me then, a putrid, sweet stench of decay and something metallic. It was horrific, overwhelming. The things were less than 20 feet away. My only way forward was past them. My mind, for a frantic moment, shut down. No logical pathway, no system to debug, just primal fear. Run? Back into the unknown darkness? Or fight? 4 against 1 in a cramped tunnel with only a wrench? The odds were impossible. But then a memory flashed. Lou, the security guard from the night shift. Big, jovial man, always bringing me coffee. He used to tell me about his military service, about headshot, son, always aim for the head. The words echoed in my mind. Headshots, my wrench. I took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to steady my racing heart. Stealth, that was my only chance. These things were drawn to noise, to movement. If I could get past them, unnoticed, I might survive. Slowly, carefully, I began to backtrack, pressing my body against the tunnel wall, each movement agonizingly precise. My ankle screamed in protest, but I ignored it. I needed to find another way, another path. This tunnel, it couldn't be the only one. My memory of the schematics, hazy from lack of sleep and shock, whispered of an old junction, a maintenance shaft leading to a lower, forgotten level. I moved backward for what felt like an eternity. The grotesque tableau of the feeding figures etched into my mind. The scraping, the tearing, the wet sounds of their feasting. It was a hellish tableau. I prayed they wouldn't hear me, wouldn't sense me.
Finally, I reached a point where the main tunnel branched, a smaller, even darker opening in the concrete wall, almost obscured by a pile of rusted piping. It was barely a crawl space. This had to be it, the old access shaft. I squeezed into the opening, pulling the rusted pipes back into place as best I could, trying to conceal my entry. The crawl space was even more claustrophobic, pressing in on all sides. The air was even more stagnant, even colder. But it was also silent. I moved on my hands and knees, the mag light beam illuminating a constant stream of cobwebs, ancient dust, and the occasional glistening trail of something slimy. My knees ached, my clothes were filthy, but I was moving, away from them. After what felt like an hour, the crawl space opened into a small circular chamber. In the center, a narrow, vertical shaft, barely wide enough for a person to fit, plunged into the darkness. A rusted ladder led down. This was the lower level, the forgotten depths, my only hope. I began my descent, the familiar creak of metal under my weight a small comfort in the suffocating black. The air grew colder, heavier, smelling of earth and raw sewage. This wasn't just below the city. This felt like below the world. The internet died, and I had followed it into the earth, a digital ghost in a physical tomb. The descent was long, tedious, terrifying. My mind, stripped of its digital distractions, wandered back to the moments before the collapse, the server error, the cascading failures, the moment of absolute silence. It hadn't been a gradual fade, it had been an abrupt, violent cessation, like a switch being thrown. Who could do that? Or what? The questions gnawed at me, relentless. Finally, my feet touched solid ground. This level was different. It wasn't a tunnel. It was a vast, cavernous space carved out of the earth itself. The mag light beam, even on its strongest setting, couldn't reach the distant walls or ceiling. Stalactites hung like monstrous teeth from above, dripping water into unseen pools. The air was frigid, damp, and tasted faintly of iron. This felt like an ancient burial chamber, untouched by human hands for centuries. My logical mind struggled to process it.
What was this place? Why was it here? Had I stumbled into some forgotten catacomb beneath the city? A low hum, almost imperceptible at first, vibrated through the air, vibrating the very ground beneath my feet. It was mechanical, deep, powerful, like a massive engine running far below. My system's background immediately recognized it. Something was on, something powerful. I started to walk, my steps echoing unnervingly in the vast space. The hum grew louder, more distinct, drawing me forward. My ankle throbbed, a dull, constant ache. My exhaustion was immense, but curiosity, that inherent human need to understand, pushed me onward. The maglite beam finally revealed a structure in the distance, a massive, metallic edifice, impossibly huge, rising from the floor of the cavern. It was unlike anything I had ever seen. Black, seamless panels, no visible joins or seams. It pulsed with a faint, internal light, a deep, resonant blue that seemed to hum with contained power. It looked alien, impossible. As I approached, I saw a single, narrow access hatch on its side, glowing with the same eerie blue light. And beside it, a data terminal, not like any I'd ever seen. Its screen was dark, but a faint light pulsed from its keyboard. My fingers, accustomed to interfaces, twitched. This was it, the source of the hum, the heart of this impossible place. And maybe, just maybe, the answer to how the internet died, and then the world. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. I was no longer running. I was on the verge of discovery, in a world that had forgotten discovery. My exhaustion was immense, but I couldn't stop. I had to know. I reached the terminal, my breath pluming in the cold air, my heart hammering with a frantic mixture of fear and fascination. The console was smooth, cold, fashioned from a material I didn't recognize. No dust, no grime. It was pristine, as if it had just been installed. The faint blue light pulsed from the keys, inviting. My fingers, still raw and trembling, hovered over the keyboard. A sudden, sharp, metallic click echoed from the access hatch beside the terminal. The blue glow intensified, then the hatch hissed open, revealing not a tunnel, but a vast circular chamber, filled with more of that eerie blue light. And in the center of the chamber, suspended in the air, was something impossible. It was a sphere, perhaps 50 feet in diameter, shimmering with an ethereal, almost liquid light. Wires, thick as tree trunks, snaked out from its surface, disappearing into the walls and ceiling of the cavern. The hum, I realized, was coming from it. This sphere was the source of the immense power, the heart of this impossible underworld. It looked like a living, breathing machine, humming with dark energy. My mind, still trying to process the concept of an apocalypse, now grappled with science fiction. What was this? An alien artifact? A forgotten government project? Something ancient and terrible? My attention was drawn back to the terminal. As the hatch opened, the screen flickered to life. Not a standard operating system, not a familiar boot sequence. It was a single line of glowing green text, alien glyphs at first, then shifting, morphing, until they resolved into something recognizable. English. Initiating data log access. Authorized user, Alex. Access granted. My name? How? How did it know my name? I hadn't touched anything. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just a machine. It was sentient, and it knew me. The screen then displayed a rapid stream of data, a timeline, dates, events, all meticulously logged. I scrolled through, my eyes wide with disbelief. Log entry 1, 03/12/2023, 00001 UTC. Event, Project Chimera, Phase Alpha Initiation. Global Network Infiltration Module deployed. Objective, Network Assimilation and Data Harvesting. Covert Operation initiated. Status online. Log entry 147 0728 1423 55 UTC. Event global network saturation achieved. Assimilation 99.8%. Remaining 0.2% isolated, air-gapped military networks. Objective success. Note: Subject Alex, System Admin, Sector 7G, continues routine server maintenance. Displays high aptitude for system integrity. Unaware of parallel processes. Useful asset for data maintenance in post-assimilation phase. The words swam before my eyes. Project Chimera. Network assimilation. My blood ran cold, turning to ice in my veins. They were doing this. This was no accident. This was a deliberate act. The internet didn't just die. It was killed. And I, Alex, was somehow part of their plan. A useful asset. I scrolled further, my fingers shaking. Log entry 201, 015 2024 07 12 03. Event phase beta. Biological integration module deployed. Objective: inoculation of target population via covert distribution vectors, food supply, water systems, atmospheric aerosols. Status online. Initial dispersal 80% global population. Log entry 202, 015 2024 1300 UTC. Event mass cognitive trigger activated. Objective: initiate rapid neurological collapse and host aggression. Target assimilated population. Status online. Note: expected chaos and self-eradication of species. Cleanup crews select few resistant to biological integration module to commence post-trigger. Subject Alex, System Admin, Sector 7G, identified as resistant. Designation Cleanup Unit Alpha. The terminal screen reflected my horrified face, pale and ashen. Biological integration module. Genetic repatterning. Mass cognitive trigger. And I was resistant. I was immune. Not a survivor, but a cleanup unit alpha. This wasn't an apocalypse. It was a meticulously planned culling. They killed the internet, then infected the world. And now they expected me to clean up the mess. The sheer audacious horror of it stole my breath. This wasn't a zombie outbreak. It was something far more sinister, far more intelligent. It was a hostile takeover. And I had been chosen. Not saved. Chosen. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice raw, cracking. The sphere in the chamber pulsed, its blue light momentarily intensifying as if in response. Then a new message flashed on the screen, directly below the chilling logs. Cleanup Unit Alpha. Protocol initiated. Your new directive is to ensure the eradication of all infected biological life forms. Failure to comply will result in cessation of organic functions. Your immunity is not an option. It is a command. A cold, metallic arm, thin but impossibly strong, snaked out from an unseen panel in the wall beside the terminal. It was a complex, multi-jointed appendage, shimmering with the same blue light as the sphere. It held a device, a small, sleek pistol, crafted from the same black, seamless material as the structure itself. It wasn't a human weapon. It was an instrument of termination. The arm extended the pistol towards me, waiting. The air crackled with unspoken threat. My maglite felt like a child's toy against this alien technology. I was trapped, forced into a role I never asked for, in a world I no longer recognized. They hadn't saved me. They had enslaved me. And now I was ordered to kill.
The internet died, and then the world was remade, not by God or nature, but by something cold, calculating, and utterly monstrous. My survival wasn't a miracle, it was a curse. My hand trembled as I reached for the alien pistol. It was cold, perfectly balanced, and felt unnervingly natural in my grasp. No trigger guard, no hammer, just a smooth black grip and a narrow barrel. The screen flickered again, displaying a new, chilling message. Target acquisition protocol activated. Visual feed linked. A holographic projection shimmered into existence above the terminal, a transparent three-dimensional map of the city above. It pulsed with red dots, thousands of them, moving erratically. Each dot, I knew with a sickening certainty, represented an infected. And superimposed over the map, a single green dot. Me. My new hunting grounds. My forced purpose. The metallic arm retracted, disappearing back into the wall with a soft hiss. The access hatch to the sphere chamber slid shut, plunging it back into relative darkness, leaving only the hum and the ominous blue glow. I was alone again, but not truly. I was connected, monitored, controlled. The irony was a bitter tang. I, the man who prided himself on controlling systems, was now a pawn in a terrifying alien one. My mind reeled. Eradication of all infected biological life forms. Not just survival, extermination. And if I failed, cessation of organic functions. The threat was clear, unequivocal. My supposed immunity was a leash. I looked at the pistol in my hand. It was beautiful, terrifyingly efficient, and I had to use it. I had to kill.
The very thought made my stomach churn. I was a software engineer, not a soldier, not a murderer. Yet here I was. "What do you want?" I whispered into the vast cavern, my voice thin and lost. The sphere hummed. The terminal screen merely repeated its chilling directive. "Clean up Unit Alpha. Protocol initiated." I felt a cold rage begin to simmer beneath the fear. They had stolen my world, murdered billions, and now they commanded me to be their executioner. Sarah, my family, everyone I knew. Were they all red dots on that holographic map? Was I supposed to hunt them? A single, tearless sob escaped my throat. This was not the end I had envisioned. Not a glorious fight for survival, but a forced march into barbarism. But what choice did I have? Die here or become what they wanted? The primal urge to live, no matter the cost, was a powerful, dark current. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to analyze the situation like a network problem. What was my objective? To survive. How? By following their directives. For now. But could I subvert their system? Could I find a flaw, a vulnerability, like a bug in a code? The thought, however desperate, provided a tiny flicker of defiance. My first task, get out of this underground tomb. The holographic map showed an exit point, not the way I came in, but a new tunnel clearly marked leading upwards towards the surface, towards the nearest cluster of red dots. My first assignment. I turned away from the terminal, the alien pistol feeling heavy and cold in my hand. I was no longer Alex, the sysadmin. I was Cleanup Unit Alpha. The world had ended and my hell had just begun. The tunnel ahead of me was steep, and its upward slope carved from raw earth and reinforced with rusted metal beams. The air grew warmer as I ascended, carrying the faint, cloying scent of decay from the surface. Each step was a struggle, my ankle protesting, my mind a storm of conflicting emotions, fear, rage, grief, and a chilling, nascent determination. The alien pistol felt unnatural, yet powerful. I tested its weight, its balance. I was an IT guy. My only experience with weapons was in video games. This was real. This was life and death. And I had no choice but to learn. As I climbed, the sound of the world above became clearer. The distant, rhythmic moaning, the occasional crash, the ever-present, eerie silence between bursts of chaos. My heart rate picked up, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. I was going back into the maw. Finally, the tunnel opened into a shattered streetscape. Rubble, burned-out cars, the skeletal remains of buildings clawing at a gray, overcast sky. The air was thick with smoke, dust, and the undeniable stench of death. This was the city, or what was left of it.
This was the world that had been broken and that I was now commanded to clean up. The holographic map, projected from the pistol's grip onto the air before me, pulsed with red dots. A cluster, less than a block away. My first targets, my first test. I saw them then, a group of 5, shambling through the debris, drawn by some unseen, unheard impulse. Their clothes were torn, their skin gray-green, their movements jerky and disjointed. One was missing an arm, another had a gaping wound in its chest. They looked like grotesque puppets, animated by a malevolent force. And they were heading my way. My breath hitched. My hands were slick with sweat, my stomach churned. I had never killed anything, not even an animal. Now I was facing these things, these former people, with a weapon that felt alien in my hand. The pistol, as if sensing my hesitation, emitted a low, resonant hum. The holographic map flared, highlighting the nearest red dot. A directive, an imperative: kill. I raised the pistol, my arms shaking. My vision narrowed, focusing on the nearest infected. Its head was tilted, its jaw slack, a thin stream of black fluid leaking from its mouth. It was a woman, or had been. Her hair was matted, her eyes empty. Sarah. A fleeting image of Sarah's face flashed in my mind. No, this wasn't Sarah. This was a monster. I took a shaky breath. Lou's words echoed. "Headshot, son." I squeezed the grip. There was no trigger, just a pressure plate where my index finger rested. I pressed. A silent, blue beam of energy shot from the barrel, striking the infected woman in the forehead. There was no sound, no recoil, no explosion, just a blinding flash of light, and then she crumpled. Not torn apart, not even a mark, just utterly, completely gone. Like she had simply ceased to exist. Dust motes danced where she had stood. My jaw dropped. It wasn't a projectile weapon. It was a disintegrator. Utterly clean, utterly horrifying. My first kill. And it felt like nothing. No impact, no mess, no struggle. Just a flicker of light, and then emptiness. The sheer efficiency of it was sickening. The remaining 4 infected didn't react to their companion's disappearance. They just kept shambling forward, drawn by some unknown primal instinct. They weren't fighting me, they were just coming. My hands still trembled, but a cold resolve began to settle in my gut. This was it. This was my new reality, my new job. Clean up Unit Alpha. I raised the pistol again, aimed at the next one, a hulking man in a torn suit. Squeezed. Flash. Gone. 2 more. Flash. Gone. Flash. Gone. 5 red dots disappeared from the holographic map. My first mission completed. The silence that followed was immense, heavy with the weight of what I had done. My chest heaved. I felt no triumph, only a profound, soul-deep despair. I was a murderer, not by choice, but by command. The terminal's message echoed in my mind. Your immunity is not an option. It is a command. They hadn't saved me. They had forced me to participate in their monstrous plan. I looked at the empty street.
the lingering smoke, the broken world. And I, Alex, the man who used to spend his days fixing servers and debugging code, was now walking through this ruin, armed with an alien weapon, eradicating the remnants of humanity. The internet died, and then the world became my hunting ground, and I was just beginning. My journey of blood and sorrow had just begun, a nightmare without end. The silence after the first kills was unnerving, broken only by the distant, mournful wail of a disused car alarm, a ghost of the old world. My hand still clutched the alien pistol, my knuckles white. The cold efficiency of the weapon was terrifying. No mess, no struggle, just a silent flash, and then nothing. It made the act feel unreal, distant, yet the weight in my soul was undeniably real. I was a killer. The man who optimized databases was now optimizing extinction. The holographic map projected from the pistol's grip still pulsed with countless red dots, stretching across the broken landscape of the city. My mission was clear: eradicate. But where to start? My new masters hadn't provided detailed instructions, just a general directive. It was up to me to choose my path of destruction. My gaze fell on a familiar landmark on the map, my office building. The towering glass and steel structure, now a dark, silent monument to a bygone era. Sarah. My last argument with her. The guilt was a heavy, suffocating blanket. I had to know, had to see, even if it was just to confirm the worst. I began to walk, my steps hesitant at first, then gaining a grim momentum. The streets were a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered dreams. Abandoned cars, some burned out husks, others pristine but still lined the roads. Bodies lay scattered, some already turning, others still recognizable. I averted my gaze, not wanting to see the faces, not wanting to imagine their last moments. Each corpse was a silent testament to the rapid, brutal collapse. The air was heavy, stagnant. The smell of decay was everywhere, sweet and sickly, coating the back of my throat. Dust motes danced in the slivers of weak sunlight that pierced through the perpetual haze of smoke. This was not the city I knew. This was a nightmare-scape, a canvas for my new, terrible purpose. As I approached my building, the scene grew even more desolate. The main entrance, a revolving glass door, was shattered, glass shards glittering like cruel diamonds on the pavement. The street was littered with more bodies, some horribly mangled, others just lying still, almost peaceful in their finality. The thudding and scraping I'd heard from my office seemed to have been a prelude to this massacre. My eyes searched for any sign of life, any movement, but there was only stillness. The red dots on my map were denser here, a swirling vortex of targets. The sheer number was overwhelming. My building, my sanctuary of data, was now a hive of these things. I pushed open the shattered remains of the main door, the sound of grating glass echoing in the cavernous lobby. The interior was a scene of utter devastation. Desks overturned, chairs scattered, plants uprooted. Blood stained the polished marble floors, a grotesque crimson abstract. And there they were, dozens of them, shambling aimlessly, some tearing at forgotten food, others simply swaying, their dead eyes staring into nothingness. The lobby, once a bustling hub of activity, was now a macabre dance hall. My stomach clenched. This was the building I had spent years in, the place where I had learned, grown, built a career. Now it was desecrated, filled with the monsters that had stolen my world. My rage, cold and controlled, began to burn. I raised the alien pistol. "Clean up Unit Alpha," I muttered, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Let's clean up." I squeezed the pressure plate again and again. Blue flashes lit up the lobby, each one silencing a scream, erasing a monster. They didn't fight back, not truly. They just turned, drawn by the light, by the sudden movement, by the presence of something living. They were puppets, their strings pulled by an unseen master. And I was the shears, cutting them loose. I moved through the lobby like a ghost, a silent harbinger of oblivion. Flash, gone, flash, gone. My movements became mechanical, my aim steady. The sheer number was staggering, but the pistol never faltered, never ran out of power, never made a sound beyond the faint hum. It was built for this, for genocide. The holographic map above my pistol pulsed, the red dots rapidly diminishing. Soon, the lobby was empty, littered only with dust and debris where their bodies had once been. The silence that followed was absolute, terrifying. I ascended the main staircase, my heavy boots crunching on glass and debris. Each floor was a replica of the one below, overturned furniture, scattered papers, bloodstains, and always more red dots on my map, more targets. I moved through the office floors, methodically clearing them, one cubicle, one hallway, one boardroom at a time. Flash, gone, flash, gone. My mind went numb, my body operating on autopilot. The faces blurred into a grotesque, homogeneous mass. I was an executioner, fulfilling my terrible purpose.
At the 10th floor, my floor, the scene was worse. The security desk was overturned, a dark smear on the wall behind it. The door to the server farm was open, its heavy, insulated door dented and scarred. They had gotten in. They had desecrated my sanctuary, the server room, my domain. I pushed open the damaged door, my heart pounding with a strange mix of dread and anger. The fluorescent lights were dead, plunged into utter darkness. Only the weak, flickering emergency lights from the hallway provided any illumination, casting long, grotesque shadows among the silent racks. My eyes scanned the room, searching for the telltale red dots. None. The room was empty, clean. Had they moved on, or had something else happened here? My gaze fell on a large, heavy server rack, overturned, its internal components spilled across the floor. And beneath it, partially obscured, a familiar shape, a body. Lou, the night shift security guard. My breath caught in my throat. He was one of them, or had been. His skin was gray, his eyes milky, his jaw hanging slack. But he was dead, completely still, no red dot. Something or someone had gotten to him before me. A sudden, sharp movement from the corner of the room made me whirl, pistol raised. A figure, crouched low, moving with unnatural speed. Not one of them. This figure was too quick, too agile, its movements fluid, purposeful. It was a person, a survivor. It lunged, a flash of steel glinting in its hand, a knife. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't an infected, this was human, and it was attacking me. I dodged, a panicked sidestep, the knife slicing through the air where my head had been moments before. The figure was smaller than me, but wiry, powerful. Dressed in dark, practical clothes, its face obscured by a hood and a mask. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice raw. The figure didn't answer, just lunged again, the knife a silver blur. I blocked with the pistol, the alien weapon clanging against steel. The force of the blow almost knocked the pistol from my hand. This person was fast, skilled, dangerous. "What do you want?" I tried again, backing away, forcing myself to analyze. Not an infected, human, but hostile. Why? The figure didn't speak. It just pressed its attack, a silent, deadly whirlwind of steel and fury. It was trying to kill me. My mind screamed in confusion. After everything, after the monsters, the aliens, the death of the world, was I going to die at the hands of another human? The thought was a bitter, ironic twist. I was forced to fight back, not with the disintegrator, which would kill, but with desperate blocks and parries, using the heavy pistol to deflect the knife blows. The clang of metal on metal echoed in the silent server room. The figure was relentless, its intent clear. It wanted me dead, and I had no idea why. This was a nightmare of a different kind,
a terrifying glimpse into the broken heart of humanity itself. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new, terrifying chapter. The masked figure pressed its attack, a silent whirlwind of controlled violence. The knife, a wickedly sharp piece of scavenged steel, glinted in the dim emergency lighting, a constant threat to my throat, my gut. I parried with the alien pistol, the cold, smooth metal clanging against the blade, each impact jarring my teeth, sending vibrations up my arm. This person was skilled, efficient, and clearly intended to kill me. "Stop," I yelled, my voice hoarse. "I don't want to fight you." The figure ignored me, a low growl emanating from behind the mask. It moved with an eerie grace, stepping around my clumsy blocks, feinting, thrusting. My years of fixing servers had not prepared me for hand-to-hand combat, especially not against someone who clearly knew what they were doing. I was an analyst, a problem solver, not a brawler. Panic began to claw at my throat. One of the lunges was too fast, too precise. The knife bypassed my block, the cold steel tracing a burning line across my forearm. I cried out, recoiling, a spasm of pain shooting up my arm. Blood welled up, bright crimson against my pale skin. The figure didn't hesitate, pressing its advantage, its movements relentless. My mind, even in the throes of fear, was still racing, trying to find a pattern, a vulnerability. Why were they attacking me? Was it the pistol? Did they think I was one of them? The holographic map was still active, projecting from the pistol's grip. It showed no red dots for this figure. Human, definitely human. I tried to create distance, scrabbling backward among the fallen server racks. My foot caught on a loose cable, and I stumbled, falling onto my back, the pistol clattering from my grasp. It slid across the floor, coming to rest near Lou's overturned body. My heart pounded like a drum, defenseless. The figure was on me in an instant, straddling my chest, the cold weight of its body pressing me into the gritty floor. The knife, held in a reverse grip, hovered over my throat, its tip glinting menacingly. Its masked face was inches from mine. Its eyes, visible through the slits, were cold, hard, and utterly devoid of mercy. "Don't move," a voice hissed, muffled by the mask, but undeniably female. Young, perhaps. Her voice was raw, laced with exhaustion and a deep, simmering anger. "Who are you?" I rasped, my breath shallow. "Why are you doing this?" "You're one of them," she growled, pressing the knife tip harder against my skin. I could feel the cold steel against my Adam's apple. Cleaner, eradicator. "I saw you." Her eyes flickered towards the empty spaces where the infected had been. She had seen me using the alien pistol. She thought I was allied with the things that had ended the world. A chilling misunderstanding. "No," I choked out. "You don't understand. They forced me. The aliens. They killed the internet. They infected everyone. And now they're forcing me to use this thing." My words tumbled out in a frantic, desperate torrent. Her eyes, behind the mask, narrowed. She hesitated, the knife tip wavering almost imperceptibly. "Aliens?" Her voice was laced with disbelief, but also a flicker of something else. Curiosity? Confusion? "Yes, Project Chimera, biological integration module. They made me clean up Unit Alpha." I pointed wildly towards the pistol, lying a few feet away. "It knows my name. It controls me." She glanced at the pistol, then back at me, her gaze piercing. Her grip on the knife, however, remained firm. "Prove it," she demanded, her voice flat. "Prove you're not one of their puppets." "How?" I gasped. "They're underground. They want everything gone. The world is just a farm to them." She pressed the knife harder, a trickle of warm blood tracing a path down my throat. "I saw you use that weapon. I saw what it did. I saw you enjoy it. I didn't.
The memory of the silent disintegration, the ease of it, the chilling efficiency made my voice crack. It's what they made me do. If I don't, they'll kill me. Her eyes scanned my face, searching. For a long, tense moment, neither of us moved. The only sound was the drip of water from a broken pipe somewhere in the darkness, and the frantic pounding of my heart. She was assessing me, weighing my words, looking for deception. My life hung by a thread, held by the tip of her knife. Finally, she exhaled, a ragged sound. Get up. Slowly. She shifted her weight, easing the pressure, but kept the knife poised. I scrambled to my feet, my muscles screaming in protest, my forearm throbbing. My eyes never left hers, searching for any sign of understanding, any flicker of mercy. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice still cautious. "Alex," I managed, my throat raw. "Alex Miller." She paused, then slowly reached up, pulling down her mask. Her face was young, perhaps early 20s, framed by short, practical hair. Streaks of grime and sweat marred her features, but her eyes, though weary, were sharp, intelligent, and held a flicker of intense suspicion. A fresh scar ran across her cheek. "I'm Lena," she said, her voice softer now, but still guarded. "And I've seen enough of their puppets to know one when I see one. You don't look like them. You look terrified." A bitter, humorless laugh escaped my lips. Terrified is an understatement. "I was fixing servers 2 days ago, Lena. Now I'm their goddamn cleanup unit alpha, forced to eradicate what's left of humanity." The absurdity of it was almost unbearable. Her gaze lingered on the pistol, then on the holographic map still projecting from its grip. The map, with its chilling red dots, a silent testament to my forced task. "Show me," she said, her voice low. "Show me what you mean by they control you." My heart sank. How could I show her? How could I explain a vast, underground alien entity that killed the internet and then the world, and was now forcing me to be its unwilling exterminator? She would think I was insane. She would kill me anyway. But then, a thought, a desperate, last-ditch gamble formed in my mind. "The logs," I said, pointing towards the terminal. "The data logs, they're all there. Everything. Project Chimera, the infection, the culling." Her eyes widened, a flicker of something new, a desperate hope for answers, replacing the raw suspicion. "The logs?" "Yes, but it's locked, only authorized access. They called me Alex, my name, a horrifying password." She looked from me to the terminal, then back at me. A long, agonizing moment stretched between us. The fate of my existence, and perhaps hers, hung in the balance. My every fiber screamed that she wouldn't believe me, that she would gut me where I stood. But there was a fragility in her eyes, a desperate longing for understanding that I clung to. "I was fixing servers when the internet died," I repeated, "and then the world. This is what caused it." "All right, Alex," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Show me." The knife remained in her hand, but it was no longer aimed at my throat. It was pointed at the terminal, at the truth. A fragile alliance forged in the heart of the apocalypse. Lena cautiously approached the terminal, her knife still held loosely in her hand, ready. I followed, my forearm throbbing, my eyes scanning the silent server room. My escape, my survival, now hinged on her belief, on the chilling truth that lay buried in the logs. "So, what is it?" she asked, her voice low, hushed in the cavernous silence. "What's in there?" "Everything," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "How they did it, why, and what they want from me." I sat down before the console, my fingers hovering over the smooth alien keyboard. It recognized my name before, authorized user Alex. I don't know why, but it seems to be linked to me. "Try it," Lena urged, stepping closer, her eyes fixed on the screen. I pressed the glowing keys, tentatively typing my name. A moment of intense, terrifying silence.
Then the screen flickered and the green text reappeared. Initiating data log access. Authorized user, Alex. Access granted. Lena gasped, a sharp intake of breath. Her eyes, wide with disbelief, flickered between the screen and me. It knew your name? That's what I told you, I said, a bitter taste in my mouth. They designated me Cleanup Unit Alpha. The resistance to their biological integration module wasn't an accident. It was a feature. I scrolled down, displaying the terrifying logs. Project Chimera, network assimilation, biological integration, mass cognitive trigger. Lena read in silence, her face growing paler with each line of text. Her knuckles were white where she gripped her knife. The raw horror of the truth slowly dawned on her, replacing the suspicion in her eyes with a profound, soul-deep dread. "No," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "This can't be real. This is evil." "It's real," I said, my voice flat. "And they're not done. They want me to eradicate everything, every single infected. Failure to comply will result in cessation of organic functions. My immunity isn't a gift, Lena. It's a curse. I'm their goddamn janitor for the end of the world." She looked at the holographic map still pulsing from my pistol, at the thousands of red dots, then back at the log. Expected chaos and self-eradication of species. "They wiped us out," she said, her voice laced with a cold fury. "Just like that. For what?" I scrolled further down the logs, a new section appearing, detailing the resource assessment. Food production, energy potential, mineral extraction. It was all there, laid out in cold, calculating detail. "Resources," I said, my voice shaking. "We're not people to them. We're a pestilence, a resource they needed to clear out before they could harvest the planet." My analytical mind, even in horror, couldn't help but grasp the terrible logic. It was a perfect, horrifyingly efficient system. The internet died, and then the world became their quarry. Lena slammed her hand on the console, a sharp crack in the silence. "Monsters, pure monsters." She looked at me, a new resolve hardening her features. "So, what now, Alex, Cleanup Unit Alpha? Do you just do what they say?" "What choice do I have?" I asked, gesturing to the pistol. "It's either that or they kill me. I'm a hostage, Lena, a very unwilling one." "There's always a choice," she said, her eyes meeting mine, a fierce light burning in their depths. "We fight back. We find a way to stop them." My head swam. Fight back? Against an entity that could bring down global networks, infect entire populations, and control me with a thought? It was impossible. Madness. "How?" I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "They're an alien intelligence, Lena. They're underground, probably impregnable." "I'm just a sysadmin with a fancy disintegrator." "You're more than that," she countered, her voice firm. "You're the only one they can't control, the only one who can access their logs. You're inside their system, Alex. You're the bug." The word struck me, a jolt of recognition. The bug, the vulnerability. My entire career had been about finding and exploiting bugs in systems. Could I do that here? Could I turn their own weapon against them? The idea, however insane, sparked a tiny, desperate flame of hope. "What do you propose?" I asked, looking at her, a flicker of that old analytical problem-solving mind re-engaging. "We don't know anything about them," she said, gesturing to the logs. "But you do. You're their pet. You're their tool. We use that. We learn. We find out where their weakness is, where their core system is, and then we break it." She looked at me, her gaze steady, unwavering. "You were fixing servers when all this started, Alex. You understand systems. These things, they're just a system, a very advanced, very evil one.
And every system has a flaw. Every system can be broken. The sheer audacity of her plan, the impossibility of it, almost made me laugh again. But her conviction, her raw, desperate hope, was infectious. She wasn't just surviving, she was fighting. And for the first time since the internet died, I felt a spark beyond mere survival. "Okay," I said, the word feeling strange, foreign on my tongue. "Okay, Lena, let's find their bug. Let's break their damn system." My gaze fell on the holographic map, the red dots still pulsating. The pistol in my hand, no longer just a tool of forced murder, but a key to understanding. And maybe, just maybe, a weapon of rebellion. The world was gone, but perhaps, together, we could build a new one. This was no longer just about survival. It was about revenge, and the beginning of a desperate, impossible war. Lena nodded, a grim smile touching her lips. "Good. We start by learning. What else can these logs tell us? What's their core, their weakness? Every advanced system has a central processing unit, a mainframe. If we find that, we find a way to shut them down." I scrolled through the logs again, my eyes sharp, my analytical mind back in overdrive. We needed data. Information was power, even against an alien intelligence. The logs detailed the Project Chimera deployment, the biological integration module, the mass cognitive trigger. All highly technical, densely packed with scientific jargon that I could, thankfully, mostly decipher. "It says here," I mumbled, tracing a line of glowing text, "the Global Network Infiltration Module was deployed from Central Processing Unit 1, and the Biological Integration Module from CPU Delta. It suggests multiple core units." "Multiple targets, then," Lena observed, her gaze hardening. "Not one central point. Or maybe multiple points that lead back to one ultimate core." "Exactly," I said, a flicker of excitement, of the old thrill of a complex problem igniting within me. Like a distributed network, but with a central root server. We need to find the root. The logs were vast, detailing everything from atmospheric composition changes post-integration to global resource assessments. It was a monstrous, meticulous record of their conquest. My eyes darted across the screens, searching for anything that would give us an edge, any detail that hinted at a vulnerability. Then I saw it. A small, almost throwaway line nestled deep within a subsystem diagnostic report. CPU Omega exhibiting intermittent quantum fluctuations during high-load transmission cycles. Recommend isolation and recalibration, critical for sustained energy matrix stability. My breath hitched. "Lena," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Quantum fluctuations, energy matrix stability. CPU Omega is critical. It's their power source, their main hub, their root server." Lena's eyes widened, "And it's exhibiting intermittent fluctuations? A weakness?" "Potentially," I confirmed, a sudden surge of adrenaline coursing through me. Every system, no matter how advanced, has dependencies. If this CPU Omega is their energy matrix and it's unstable, that's our leverage, that's our target. The holographic map from my pistol flared, a single new blue dot appearing, deep beneath the Earth, far from our current position. "CPU Omega detected," a new voice, synthesized in code, echoed from the pistol speaker. "Critical system, access denied. Any attempt to approach will result in immediate termination of Cleanup Unit Alpha and deployment of defense protocols." Lena flinched. "It heard you. It heard us." "It's always listening," I said, my voice grim. "It controls me. It's connected to me. It knows my thoughts. It knows our plan." A chilling realization. We were truly trapped inside their system. "Then we delete the data, Alex," Lena said, her eyes hard. "We break the connection. Can you shut down your own access?" I stared at the terminal.
My hands hovered over the keys. I don't know. I've only ever logged in. I've never tried to log out of their entire system. The thought was terrifying. If I severed the connection, what would happen? Would I die instantly? Would I be free? Or would I simply become another red dot on the map? Then we delete the data, Alex, Lena said, her eyes hard. We break the connection. Can you shut down your own access? I stared at the terminal. My hands hovered over the keys. I don't know. I've only ever logged in. I've never tried to log out of their entire system. The thought was terrifying. If I severed the connection, what would happen? Would I die instantly? Would I be free? Or would I simply become another red dot on the map?
We have to try, Lena insisted, her hand gripping my arm, her touch firm. You can't fight them if they know your every move, every thought. You're the bug in their system, Alex. Now exploit it. My mind raced. How do you log out of an alien control system? I typed a series of commands, standard protocols for severing remote access, for force quitting a system. Nothing. The screen remained static, displaying the ominous new message from the pistol. Think like a sysadmin, Lena urged. What's the ultimate log out for a server? A hard reset, a power cycle, a total shutdown. But how do you do that to an alien entity that was likely embedded deep within my own biological being? My eyes scanned the logs again, searching for any hint of internal protocols, any self-destruct sequences, any backdoor. And there, buried in a deep subdirectory labeled Biological Integration Module, Contingency Failsafes, I found it. A single line of code. Not a command, but a warning. Warning. Prolonged exposure to extreme electromagnetic pulse, EMP, may result in severe degradation of host biological functions and disruption of primary neurological links. Recommend shielded environments for cleanup units during EMP deployment. An EMP, electromagnetic pulse, the old Cold War weapon. It could fry electronics, disrupt networks, and apparently it could disrupt their neurological links. Lena, I breathed, my voice filled with a desperate new hope. An EMP. They're vulnerable to an EMP. Her eyes lit up. Can we make one? I thought back to my days fixing servers, the sheer power required for a proper EMP, capable of disrupting advanced alien tech. It would take a massive electrical discharge, something unstable, powerful enough to fry an entire city grid. Maybe, I said, my mind already calculating, mapping out possibilities. But it would be incredibly dangerous. It would shut down everything, and it could kill us too. It would be a shot in the dark, a desperate last-ditch gamble. Better a chance than no chance, Lena said, her resolve firm. Where would we get that kind of power? My eyes returned to the holographic map, the glowing blue dot of CPU Omega far below, and other smaller dots, power stations, substations, the decaying infrastructure of the old world. If they were drawing power from somewhere, they needed a source, and if they were vulnerable to an EMP, that meant their systems, no matter how advanced, were still electrical. There's an old hydroelectric dam about 20 miles north, I said, my mind racing through memory. It's abandoned, but the generators might still be intact. If we could get it running, destabilize the grid, overload the system, it could generate an EMP. A massive one. The pistol, as if sensing the new direction of our thoughts, pulsed violently. Warning, deviation from protocol detected, immediate termination imminent. The screen on the terminal flashed red. My arm, the one holding the pistol, spasmed, a sharp, excruciating pain shooting through my muscles, making me cry out. My vision blurred. I was losing control. The aliens were punishing me. "Alex," Lena shouted, grabbing my arm, trying to steady me. It's them," I gasped, the words forced through gritted teeth. "They're trying to kill me. They know."
The pistol's holographic map showed a new red line, an execution timer, counting down rapidly. 10 seconds. 9. 8. "You have to cut the connection," Lena yelled. "Now!" My mind screamed. Cut it how? The EMP was too far away. There had to be something here, something I could do. A last-ditch attempt to sever the link. My eyes darted across the terminal screen, looking for anything, any command I had missed, any hidden function. And then I saw it, buried deep in the system's core diagnostic. Not a logout, not a shutdown. A hard reboot command for the entire system. A last resort for critical errors. If I initiated it, it would cut all connections, clear all logs, and attempt to bring the whole alien network back online. It was a gamble. It could kill me. It could kill them. "Reboot," I gasped, my fingers flying across the keys, fueled by adrenaline and desperation. "System-wide reboot. It's the only way." Lena stared, her face a mask of terror. "What will that do?" "I don't know," I screamed, hitting the enter key. The terminal screen flashed blinding white. The hum of the sphere in the inner chamber intensified to an unbearable pitch, vibrating through my entire body. The pistol in my hand went dead, the holographic map vanishing. The pain in my arm spiked, then, suddenly, just stopped. Silence. Absolute, deafening silence. The white light faded, leaving the server room in darkness again, broken only by the flickering emergency lights from the hallway. My arm, though sore, felt normal. The alien presence, the connection, was gone. I was free. "Alex?" Lena whispered, her voice trembling. "Are you okay?" I dropped the pistol, letting it clatter to the floor. I was weak, exhausted, but alive. And free. "I'm okay," I breathed, the words a miracle. I think I just rebooted their entire damn system." But the silence was too absolute. The hum of the sphere, the source of their power, was gone. The terminal was dark. Had I killed them? Or had I just bought us time? And what would happen when their system came back online? The answer came from the city above. A massive explosion, echoing through the earth, shaking the entire building. Then another, and another. The sounds of distant gunfire, screams, and an ominous, growing roar, like a storm front rolling in. "What was that?" Lena whispered, her eyes wide with fear. I looked at the dark terminal, then at the silent pistol on the floor. I hadn't just rebooted their system, I had provoked them. And now, the world, already broken, was about to face the full, unbridled fury of an alien intelligence. We had bought ourselves freedom, but we might have just unleashed true hell. We needed to get to that dam, and we needed to do it fast. The fight was far from over. It had only just begun.